All right, so today's first thing that we're going to do is look at this picture. What I'd like for all of us to do is, if you could please turn to the person next to you in a moment. And if you don't already know this person, you can introduce yourself first. And then I want for you to discuss what you think is going on in this picture, given the fact that today's topic is how to make your mind your friend. So you can just analyze what's going on here. There's different characters, different personalities. You can just talk to the person next to you and just see what's going on here. All right, go ahead.
Hi, nice to meet you. What's your name? I know what your name is. Our senses are like crazy horses. I let myself go for the cool parts way too much sometimes. I love the ride. Yeah, exactly. The one that actually school said at the time is the most difficult control. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like your mind, but also behind your words. That makes your mind. The one who's okay, that's the soul. That's the soul, that's the human body, and those are this whole thing, yeah, this is voluntary. Well, the one that's light looks like yeah, no, wait, I think that one is the like the human body. That one is the soul. That's the soul.
Okay, thank you for discussing. Let's share what did we think is happening in this picture? Yes.
So me and Carmen, we were talking about that we think that the horses represents like the sense gratification, the desires of the mind. Maybe the mind is the chariot, the one driving the chariot, but all the senses want their own desires or like kind of fighting like for control. And then we thought maybe the being all the way in the background is like the soul, like the spirit kind of like disoriented and upset, right?
Well,
I think
so
that's
I
us, right?
think it's like, like us trying to get in charge. That mind is trying to like, I think of the one with the reins as the mind trying to get some kind of order. We said that the one with the guy, he looked a little calm, and the one with the
Yeah.
really off.
Yeah, the one with the ear senses like
It looked
But
like
the one in the back, is that the divine? Would that be the
soul?
divine soul?
We'll get to it. What else did we? Any other points to add for what we thought this picture was showing? Yes. In Spanish? Okay, perfect. Does someone else know Spanish by any chance? Okay, perfect. We can translate. Yeah.
Caballos son los sentidos.
horses
Van
are
hablando de
the
los objetos de los sentidos.
horses are the
Las riendas es la mente, la rienda. Y la que agarra las riendas es la inteligencia.
Intelligence is pulling the ropes.
La inteligencia, ¿no? Que frena a la mente. Porque si
Which
no
controls the mind. The intelligence is controlling the mind.
porque si no la frena,
If doesn't stop it,
la mente va atrás. Los sentidos la llevan a la mente hacia los objetos de los sentidos.
if the intelligence doesn't pull, the horses of the senses will pull away.
El carro es el cuerpo.
The chariot is the body.
Y el alma, el ser, es el que está atrás asustado.
The self or the atma is the one that's like fighting behind.
Thank you so much.
I
That's
think he's
yeah.
red backward.
Yeah.
You know the right.
I can definitely tell. I hope you're able to get something out of this. Unfortunately, it's in English, but I'm really happy you're here. Maybe we should also do Spanish classes also. Thank you for sharing. Yes. But thank you for being here. Thank you. Those are really nice points. So what we'll be doing in the rest of this talk is kind of unpacking. So we had this idea that there are the senses which are being controlled by the mind, and they seem to be very restless. And behind there's the intelligence, which is guiding the mind. And to the degree that the intelligence is maybe guiding the mind, the horses may be more or less controlled. So this is very related to the setting of the Bhagavad Gita. If you're not familiar with the setup of the story of the Bhagavad Gita is one of the preeminent Bhakti wisdom literatures, and it was spoken approximately 5,000 years ago. And since it was spoken, it's gone viral. And now it's widely read and distributed around the world, and it's the source of inspiration for many practitioners of Bhakti Yoga. So the setting of the Bhagavad Gita is this. There's two people, Krishna and Arjuna, and they're both very good friends. Krishna is Arjun's spiritual guide, and he gives divine inspiration and wisdom to him. So Arjun has this big problem. He's right now in the middle of a battlefield, and he's a warrior. And his duty is to fight this battle. There's a whole story about why that's happening, but in short, he's righteously fighting this battle. He has to do it, otherwise it would be a destruction for the world. So he has this duty to fight this battle, and all of a sudden he starts thinking, well, actually, Krishna, my mind is so disturbed. There's so many thoughts flowing through my mind. My mind feels right now like it's more difficult to control than the wind. Has anyone tried controlling the wind by any chance? It worked for anyone? Probably not. Very difficult to control. So he's saying that, yeah, go ahead.
I got scared in a storm.
Yeah.
I called the god Oya, who's
Uh-huh.
the deity of the wind,
Mm.
and I asked for her protection.
Did it work?
I think so. Well, it makes me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, Arjun has this big problem. He can't control his mind. And the rest of the discussion goes into how he can control this mind, along with many other topics which emerge from this discussion. So here's one of the quotes from the Bhagavad Gita. It says, could someone volunteer to read this out loud? Go ahead. Yeah.
For him who has conquered the mind is best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, its mind will remain greatest enemy.
Mm-hmm. So the mind can either be our friend or our enemy, depending on whether it's controlled or not. So what we'll be looking into today is how we can make the mind our friend. So the first thing is that the mind is just like an instrument, and it needs to be tuned. There's this instrument here called the mridanga. It's a drum instrument, and it needs to be tuned, otherwise it will sound very flat. So we usually, on the big side, we put some water on it, and then we press it, and that makes it lower. And if it's already too low, then we put it in front of fire or the sun, and that makes it go higher. And so what makes our mind go out of tune? There's 3 points I'd like to share, which come from the Bhagavad Gita. The first one is that oftentimes we end up using people and loving things instead of the other way around. There's an analogy relating to this. If you can imagine yourself, you're outside of your home and your home is on fire, it's burning. And you only have time to go in and get one thing. Otherwise, if you try to get more than one thing, it'll collapse. And inside your home, there's lots of things. There's pots, there's your TV, there's your baseball bat, and there's your cat. Which one will you get out of all of those? The cat, yeah. We have this The TV? Okay. Yeah. If you choose to get the TV, you might not be as respected in your community. You may have to leave. But we have this intrinsic idea that we value consciousness over matter. But so often our pursuits end up being tailored towards going after material things rather than valuing consciousness. So that's the first thing which ends up making our mind go out of tune. The second thing is that we're frequently not in the present moment. We may dwell on the past, dwell on the future. So a natural question that may arise is, okay, well, if I'm always in the present, then isn't that also a problem? Like, don't I also need to think about the future or think about the past a little bit? A helpful analogy for this is, it's very much like driving a car. Anyone here drive?
Yeah.
Yes, most of. You don't really have to in this city, I've learned, because I only got here this year, but there's so much public transportation, which is really nice. But if you ever do drive a car, generally speaking, you're looking forward, right? And then you're just looking forward, you're looking on the path. Let's say you want to change directions. Then you momentarily look in the rearview mirror and you just analyze what's going on there. And then you change directions. And this is very similar to how we should use our previous experiences. We can draw from them to make our decisions by momentarily referring to them. But when we end up dwelling on them, it can consume us. And that's when we don't live in the present moment. So that's how we can, tune the mind in the sense of being in the present moment. We draw from our previous experiences, but we don't end up being consumed by them by dwelling on them. And the last point is, actually, I won't show it. Let's do an activity first. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
How do we know if we are in the present moment?
Great question. We know there's a couple of symptoms. One is that your mind ends up being clear, and the answer to this relates to the very next point. So I'll answer right after we show this one. So let's all stand up. We're going to do a little bit, try something. Okay. So usually in these programs, we do bhakti yoga, so like hearing, chanting, discussing. We're going to try some physical yoga just for a moment. If you could please stand on one leg and just balance and hold it there for a second. It's maybe your first time doing it, or maybe you're very experienced at this. Seems like you're very experienced. And just try to balance for a moment here. Okay. All right, now do the same thing, but close your eyes. Yeah.
I don't have insurance.
Okay, you can you can open your eyes now. Okay, thank you. We can all sit down. Did anyone notice that it was maybe a little more difficult when you close your eyes?
Yeah.
When you had your eyes open, did anyone have like a tactic or some trick on how they were able to keep balance?
Yeah.
You look at sort of
Have like one fixed point and you just
Exactly, yeah. What can be really helpful is to just fix your mind on something which isn't moving, and then naturally your body will respond to that and you won't end up moving. So this relates to the third thing, which is our mind is out of tune when we lack an ultimate goal. So when we're not in the present moment, we're not thinking about our ultimate goal, and we're not taking active, proactive steps to reach that ultimate goal. And this is described in the Bhagavad Gita. In one of the verses, it says, Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana, which means that for people who are resolute in purpose, their aim is one. And for those who are not resolute, if you're irresolute, then your aim is many-branched. So what we need to identify is, what is our purpose? And from that, we end up doing our decision-making. So what is our purpose? So when I was in the subway last week, I saw this really cool sign, so I thought of putting it in this presentation. And unfortunately, there was this person sleeping next to it, so I decided to... I blacked him out because it would be a little bit of a violation to show him. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Could someone please read out the sign if you can see it? It's a little bit hard to see.
Make the last thing you ever do the best thing you ever did.
Mm-hmm. So this relates to the idea of prioritization, deciding before we act. That's one of the great benefits of having human faculty. It's less common amongst animals, but we have the ability to, there's this quote, measure 9 times and cut once. There's this story in one of the Bhakti wisdom literatures called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this story, there's a very great king. And this king was there about 5,000 years ago. And in those days, the kings, they had training in ethics, philosophy, different principles. It's not as much, I think, common now to see that amongst our world leaders. But back then, this was part of the prescribed duties for the king. And so this king, he ends up finding out that he has 7 days to live. Now, why that is, I won't get into. You'll have to read the book. But he ends up having 7 days to live. And this sparks a whole discussion as far as, well, I only have 7 days to live. Now I need to prioritize my whole life. What should I do? The whole book is essentially about that. So the point here is that we start with the end in mind. There's this book by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of those habits is to start with the end in mind. In other words, starting with our ultimate goal will help us understand what steps we need to take right now. But without that ultimate goal, we may think we need to do this now, and then the next day we try to do something else. So for the Bhakti yogi, or for yogis in general, a yogi is someone who practices yoga. The ultimate goal is to remember the Supreme at the time of death. And so what the yogis do is that they live a life of spirituality throughout their life, so that they're constantly associating with this, these spiritual values and these spiritual, and they're constantly in connection with the Supreme, at least once a day, if not 24/7. So here, the main takeaway I had when seeing this is that when we have too many choices, we can end up having decision fatigue. So what we have to do is identify our purpose and then determine what's most important after doing that. I need a volunteer for this next thing, and preferably someone who is college educated, because it's a little difficult. I don't have a college degree, so I wouldn't count. But as someone who has a college degree, it's going to be a little bit tricky, but it's not that, okay, but you want to do it? Okay, what I want you to do is, there's going to be a bunch of text. You're just going to go ahead, it's going to look a little weird, but just go ahead and read it, and just read the whole thing. Okay.
Jumbled paragraph. I could not believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind. According to a research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazing, huh? Yeah, and I always thought spelling was important.
Isn't this really cool? I thought this was so cool. Yeah. Yeah. So what's the takeaway for this for our mind? The idea here is that we make decisions based on our pre-programmed attractions and repulsions. That's what's known as samskars. So we're able to read this and interpret it properly because our mind is already conditioned in a certain way. Our mind immediately interprets it in the way that it's already conditioned to do, based on the word associations. And so this is what we have to do for our mind. We have to understand, what impressions do our mind have? What samskars does it have? So what are some of the things that we consume which you think maybe forms an impression on us? What are some examples? Your food, absolutely. Go on, yeah. Music, definitely. What else? Internet. You want to say a little bit more about that?
Mostly social media, maybe doom scrolling.
Yeah, doom scrolling. Definitely not free from that myself. I'm definitely a victim of that sometimes. What else? Relationships. How so?
Your experience with others, your family, your friends, your co-workers, all have a impact on what you think, what you are thinking even now.
Yeah, of course. Like the people that we associate with has a big impact on our consciousness. Oftentimes we tend to take the quality of the other people that we surround ourselves with. Anything else? Let's get one more.
Your environment, like your environment, just where you find yourself, like certain spaces that you have to frequent, or if it's in your control or not in your control, that can have an influence on your mind too.
Thank you. Yeah. So it turns out that our mind, it records and it saves everything. And the material world is kind of like clickbait. And yogis, the people who practice yoga, they're very careful about where they click, because they understand that wherever they put their mind to, whatever impressions they're dumping into here, it has a profound impact on their habits, on their consciousness. The impressions that we form lead to what habits we end up having. So what we need to do is determine what are we consuming, because we know that that will form our impressions, which will lead to what habits we end up doing. So what we need to do is upgrade our habits. Change the script to change the mind. So as we saw, we choose based on our pre-programmed attractions and repulsions. And so from where do we get these samskars? As we discussed, it was from all these different things that we consume, like books, movies, music, friends. And so how do we actually change this script? How do we change the script of the mind? Well, it's useful to kind of rephrase this problem. Some yoga practices, they emphasize eliminating desire. But in Bhakti, what we do is we don't eliminate desire. All we do is we spiritualize that desire. And so I want to just ask all of you, what are some things that you think we currently consume, and what do you think we can replace that with so that we can get something higher out of it? So any examples of that there's some things we mentioned already, like music. Yeah, you had something.
Like I used to watch Netflix and a lot of garbage TV,
Hmm.
and then I started like putting on the those channels where I get the morning lesson
Yeah.
and just listening to more gurus. I started changing
Hmm.
what I listened to on
Hmm.
the TV so that after a while I look at the Netflix thing again and I'm like, I'm not interested in this. Like I develop a higher taste
Yeah.
in what I watch.
Yeah, spiritual life is very accommodating in that way because you can still watch TV. It's just recommended to watch something spiritual. What else? What else can we replace? Something that we consume? Yeah.
I listen to a lot of music, like
Yeah.
a lot of music, and like a lot of like rap music or hip hop music, and like it's good, it's fun, but like sometimes I get really into it, and then like I can notice like things will change, like my moods will change or like things like that. So nowadays I notice whenever I feel misaligned, I'll like listen to like a bhajan or like I'll just like close my eyes and like before bed or like before anything, I'll like make sure I listen to bhajans or kind of like at least once a day or maybe throughout the day, and that way it feels like when I do listen to fun music, it's like I don't get too into it. It's just like it's like a break from real life being
Yeah.
bhajans, and this is just like a surface level you can enjoy it, but you're not too immersed into it like how I used to be.
I really like that point that sometimes the sounds we listen to can be like an escape from the world. Whereas when we listen to spiritual sound, it's like we're actually being who we are, ourselves. We're like in connection with our eternal identity in some sense.
Yeah.
That's a really nice point. What else? Anything else that we can replace? Yeah.
I feel that, when I first started coming to the temple, and people used to say, "Oh, this food that we have here is spiritualized." I'm like, what the
Yeah. What is that? What is spiritualized? It looks the same,
But actually, when somebody explained to me, like, when you go to your parents' house and your mom makes a meal with love to you, it actually feels different in your body, in your mind. You feel like, wow. So if I started cooking at my house with that type of intention, like making cooking like a meditation to offer the food, and actually I feel it has had an impact. That and the quality of the food itself, but also like the intention which I cook the food.
Thank you for sharing. That's really, really important point. Definitely. I think what I'm learning from this is that, when we're trying to develop a new habit, if we just tell our mind no without giving it a suitable alternative, then we'll just end up going back to that same thing. What our mind really needs is something better to do. Otherwise, we'll fall back into our previous conditioning. And so that's what the idea behind spirituality is. For any given activity that we have in life, we can just make this decision and decide. We can think to ourselves, how can I make this spiritual? Or what's a spiritual alternative for the same thing? And that way we don't actually feel like we're missing out on anything. We're just spiritualizing every aspect of our life. Can I get a volunteer to read this quote? This quote is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's one of the other bhakti literatures that I mentioned. Just a volunteer to read it.
An expert horseman, desiring to tame a headstrong horse, first lets the horse have his way for a moment, and then pulling the reins, gradually places the horse on the desired path. Similarly, the supreme yoga process is that by which one carefully observes the movements and desires of the mind and gradually brings them under full control.
This is very much related to the first picture we had with the horses and the reins. So the idea here is that the mind doesn't actually have, or at least the intelligence doesn't actually have control over the mind with like reins. You saw that the intelligence was speaking to the mind, but it wasn't exactly like forcefully, controlling it. So what we see described here is that first lets the horse have his way for a moment and then pulls the reins. If we end up going too strong with the mind where we just say, okay, no, you can't do this, then the mind will just be like, okay, well, no, thank you. I'm going to do it. And so what we have to do is say, okay, we have to analyze our mind. First, we have to realize that we're not actually our mind. Our mind is different from us. We are the witness to the mind. Just like, there was in this picture, there was those two people. We're witnessing what the mind is doing. That's a helpful way to think about it. And so we just observe, what is my mind naturally inclined to do? And then for whatever it's trying to do, we just say, okay, I'm just going to figure out how to make this spiritual. And then by doing this for anything that we're trying to do, at a certain point, your mind will become in tune with your intelligence, and it will be completely guided, completely in sync with it. Yeah.
What do you mean by make this spiritual? How do you make something spiritual?
Yeah. So what we were saying earlier was, some people like music. Some people, well, I'm assuming most people like to hang out with, other people. And so for all these different aspects of our lives, we just figure out how to make that spiritual. So I say, my mind likes music. Okay, I recognize that. Now all I have to do is just find spiritual music. Then my mind will be easier to control. Or my mind likes to eat food. Well, I should be very conscious about what I eat. Then that becomes spiritual. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's a great question. Thank you. This is a very well-known point, kind of overused to some sense, but I thought it was still worth mentioning. So there's this idea that there is a circle of concern, and a subset of that circle is the circle of influence. So which one do you think we have to worry about? Circle of influence, yeah, exactly, because if something's beyond your circle of influence, you can't do anything about it. That's what it means. It's something that you're concerned about, but you have no influence over it. So this is kind of a general principle as well for any situation that we find ourselves in. If it's something which is beyond our circle of concern, we might tend to dwell upon it. But we should realize that if we can't actually do something about it, then it's not worth putting as much mental energy into. So one way you can make your mind your friend is to just make this distinction. Sometimes we end up dwelling on so many things which are beyond our circle of influence. Like when we watch the news, just in general, there's so many things that we can end up being despondent about without realizing that there's nothing we can do about it. So what we have to do to stay in the present is to realize, what can I do right now? What actions can I take? And what's beyond my concern? Well, I leave that up to the universe to decide. The last thing I have on here is ways to purify the mind. So what we saw earlier was that the mind has an attachment to various sense objects. Like the horses, they're drawn towards different things in the material world. And so these sense objects are embedded within the mind. The mind is kind of the center of these sense objects. And so that makes our mind cluttered with them, and that actually covers our original consciousness. But above the mind is the intelligence, which can actually perceive our eternal consciousness. And so by being in tune with our intelligence, we can note the error of our mind, and then we are able to become separate from the illusory objects of this world. We use our intelligence to detach ourselves from our mind. And so in this way, we become kind of like a witness, aloof to our mind and these illusory attachments. The main principle behind this is that in the Bhagavad Gita, there's two different energies described. There is the lower energy, which consists of material elements, material nature. And there's the higher energy, which is consciousness. And what we recognize in this Bhakti Yoga spiritual practice is that we are actually the consciousness within this body, but we are not actually this body. We're not associated with material elements. Our spiritual self is actually categorically different from this material world. And so what we have to do is, because we realize that we're spiritual beings, we have to stay connected to spiritual energy. So here are two ways of doing that. The first way is to do non-award seeking work. That's what you see this woman doing in the first picture over there. This woman is very selflessly planting something. Let's suppose it's not in her garden, so it's non-award seeking. Generally speaking, the mind tries to think of, how can I serve myself? How can I serve my own senses? But that ends up leading to maybe some temporary sense of happiness, but it doesn't last nearly as much as doing something which is non-award seeking. And that's because our eternal nature is to be of service. Has anyone noticed that when you've done something selflessly for someone else, it made you feel good? Yes. Anyone have an example of this? It could be something small. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I helped this lady. She had her child strapped to her chest, and she asked me if I could just help her with the buckle.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. And when I did it, I just felt so happy to do that. I don't know. I know it's small, like you said.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it felt like I was part of something bigger than for some reason.
Yeah, thank you. And I think when we do these little things like that, we realize, oh yeah, well maybe this is what life is about. It's like this is what actually makes me happy. The second thing that we have here is to hear transcendental sound. So as we discussed earlier, there's all different kinds of sound vibrations we can hear. But the way to purify the mind is to, as much as possible, or at least once a day, it's recommended to hear transcendental sound vibration, because that clears our consciousness and actually makes us directly connected with our Supreme Source. Thank you for listening to all of this. Are there any questions, reflections? You can also lodge a complaint if you have one. Anything that you want to share from today? Yeah.
What is transcendental sound, and where can you find that? And how does it clear your conscious?
It's a wonderful question. So transcendental sound is that sound vibration which transcends the material elements. And so what we saw earlier was that there are certain energies which are material and certain which are spiritual. And transcendental sound is actually considered to be not part of this world. It's considered to be transcendent to this world. That's why it's considered as transcendental sound. So what's an example of that? This Hare Krishna mantra meditation is an example of that. They're arranged to be divine names of our Supreme Source, and that would be an example of transcendental sound.
But they were still made here.
So the understanding that's given in the Bhakti wisdom literatures is that transcendental sound is eternal and is not formulated by any person, but it is practiced and passed down among generations for people to practice. Yes. Yeah, this lady here is planting a little plant, and the idea behind it is that she's doing something selfless, which means that she's doing it not for herself, but she's doing it for the benefit of the earth in this case. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was wondering, I've had this question in mind for a while, and this is I think this is a good time to ask because I think it connects. Because so how can you make spiritual, like certain endeavors that you feel more inclined to, like say if you're an artist and you like to act and sing, but then how can you make that selfless without having wanting or reward? Because like in some way that's some part of it. Because like like entertainers, actors, singers, these things, how can you spiritualize that?
Great question. Yeah, you had something related?
I was gonna add like say my experience with it.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I actually had that question too.
Okay.
And I thought about that a lot. And I'm also in the art space and entertaining space.
Yeah.
So the way I like to spiritualize my craft is remove myself from my art. In the sense that the purpose of the art, the purpose of whatever content you're creating is for the greater good of society. It's to benefit everyone as a whole. So you're doing it from a selfless perspective. It doesn't matter if you make it out there. It doesn't matter if your name is famous. It doesn't matter if you make a penny out of it. The purpose behind it is to is you need to remember the purpose behind the art is to for the greater good of society. And I think as long as you have that mindset, it's selfless.
That's really nice. Wonderful point. Just to add to that, it largely has to do with the consciousness in which we do things rather than what the actual activity is in itself. So we could be doing the same job that we currently have with a spiritual consciousness, and that makes it spiritual without actually changing what we're doing. So the way to do that was like how he was saying, we could have this idea that I'm doing this as a service. We could also have the perspective that I need to make a living somehow in order to facilitate my spiritual practice. And so I'm doing this job that I have because I need to take care of my material body. But this itself isn't the end. I'm doing this in order to have my own spiritual practice and give back to society as well. Does that help?
It does. I think my mind is still very over analytical, and I'm still a little. For instance.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if this is too centered on me.
That's
right
okay.
now,
That's okay.
Because I've been thinking about it for a long time. Like, how would I do this? So, like, say you like acting, so then you have to put yourself out there and go on auditions and all these things. So you're kind of going to be thinking of yourself in a way, or like being the best to get the part, not because you want to be famous, but because it's something you enjoy. But how do you? I just want to be with, like you said, as long as we have the intention, the consciousness of how do I make it that though?
Yeah.
Trying to
The way we can do that is by recognizing that in any endeavor that we do, we're not actually in ultimate control of it. There are so many other factors which are helping us get towards this goal. So even though we may try our best, whether we actually get the result or not is dependent on, divine arrangement. It's dependent upon so many other people that have come into our life, which we didn't arrange for, but have helped us facilitate, our this, journey that we're on. And so when we go about in our endeavor, and even though we may have to put ourselves out there, if we do it from a position of humility, where we recognize that we're not actually the doer, and we're not actually in ultimate control, and we're actually so dependent on all these other people, then we recognize our actual position. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions, reflections? Yeah, Hadai.
Thank you so much. I like this point of. Can you go back to your slides, the repression one?
Yes. One more.
One more. Yeah, replace and repress. I found that things that I can't, I'm not able to replace right now. Like I still have some attachment, even though I know that it's kind of not right. Like for me, it was like when I was first joining the monastery, it was like scrolling, scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on Facebook. Yeah. And then I realized I can't give this up immediately. So what's kind of the solution? I can't necessarily spiritualize it. Unless like the algorithm gives me spiritual content. But that's a long time coming. So one thing that helped me that I did is things that I can control, I put boundaries on them. Like if I'm gonna scroll, I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes and I'm gonna scroll. And then the next day, next week I'll do 9 minutes. The next week I'll do 8 minutes. And then I got to a time, and I'm just putting minutes. It was much more than 10 minutes. Yeah. Then I got into a certain amount of time that was acceptable to me. And that is all. If you can't make it spiritual, at least try to have it under control.
Yeah.
Like condense it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make things intentional.
That's really great advice. It's really good to be progressive about our progress. Sometimes if we, just decide to cut things out completely at first, it might work for a little bit, and then 10 days later, I'm scrolling again. It can also be useful to take help. Like if you have someone who can keep you accountable for scrolling, you can just straight up tell them and say, "Hey, I have this scrolling problem. Can you help me figure it out? Can you help me actually check in on me and make sure that I'm not doing it?" Thank you for sharing, Hadai. I saw one other hand. Yes.
I just want to know meaning of what means God's love.
What is the meaning of God's love? Wonderful question. There's many different ways that we can approach this question. What comes to my mind now is that our supreme source, or if you're comfortable with God, is willing to reciprocate love with us to the degree that we're willing to reciprocate love. So it's kind of like if you think of, let's say someone's a parent, and the child let's say there's a 3-year-old child, and this child draws a painting or like a little picture for the parent and shows it. And then the parent will look at this picture and say, "Wow, this is so," it brings such joy to the parent to see this. And they may even put it on their wall next to these beautiful masterpieces. And this little painting means so much more to the parent than, all the wonderful artistic paintings. The reason for that is because even though this picture is so imperfectly drawn, what the parent sees is the love that the child has put into it. And so similarly, the parent is willing to reciprocate with the child because the child has shown so much love. And so our supreme source is very much just like that, which is our supreme source is all loving and all benevolent and reciprocates with the love that we, give. But the love that the Supreme Source gives is infinite in nature. We're finite, so we can't give everything. But all we have to do is try our best and give our love to the best of our ability. And in return, the Supreme Source, because our Supreme Source is omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-benevolent, the Supreme Source is able to reciprocate to unlimited degree. Yes. And that's what actually makes us fully blissful and fully happy, is by making this connection. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I just wanted to share with the two artists, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So one thing you can do actually is that, example, the mantra that we did, someone had to do that. So you can also dedicate time to helping here, which helps others. You have performance in which they do, that you can actually partake of. So it's one thing you're out there working, but when you're doing it for the center, you're doing it here, you're actually receiving a lot more benefit. And it's selfless because you're not looking for a reward when you're here.
Right.
When you're outside, you're looking for a reward. When you're here, you know that you want to give it back. You know that you want to benefit others. Right. So this is a very good place to actually start out. You can ask anyone to actually, can I do something in my skill? Or, it's a very good way to start.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question that when it comes to spiritualization or spirituality, is it personal or are there common themes and underlying fundamentals which are applicable to each of us?
Both. It's very personal, and there are also universal principles. So the application of these universal principles may be personal for each of us, because we all have different innate natures, but the principles nevertheless may remain the same. So if we have this idea that selfless service is a principle, the way in which we go about that may be different for each of us. But we can apply these universal principles in a way that's completely satisfying to us personally.
Okay, but what service you do can be different.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
And also, what is selfless can be an interpretation of myself and can be different from someone else as well.
Possibly. You could end up having this wrong idea of selfless service. So it's possible for someone to think they're being selfless, but actually they have some innate selfish purpose to it. But there's different actual activities that we could do for selflessly serving.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
You know that intelligence in the picture, is that everybody has their own intelligence?
Yes.
Or is that not one intelligence? Or everybody has their own?
Correct. Everyone has their own intelligence.
But then that intelligence is sourced from one? Or each person's intelligence is sourced from one?
Yeah. Well, the idea that's presented in the Bhakti wisdom literature is that everything, not just intelligence, but everything emanates from the Supreme Source. And so the intelligence would also be included in that. Yeah. Any final points? This was great. Thank you all so much for participating and sharing, having wonderful discussion. We will go to my favorite part of the event. Second favorite. Favorite part is the food in the beginning. Second favorite is mantra meditation.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are the two words, the two characters?
Yeah, well, it was a little difficult to find a picture for this. Oh, you're asking about these characters.
No, I asked the question on purpose.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I have no idea what those characters are. Yeah.
I've never seen them.
Yeah, it's probably. I actually used AI to generate this, so it's definitely bogus. Yeah, it can hardly get English correct. So. Yeah. Yeah. All right. If you want to play Merlingo, okay. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Big round of applause to Anshu.